Hey everyone, Adam Kanakin here at ILEETA 2022. With me, Dan Greene. Thanks for being here, brother.
Adam, thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
Running it back. We did this last year, tons of fun.
Yes, sir.
We're doing it again this year. You're teaching again this year.
I am.
What are you teaching this year?
This year I'm doing a class called When the FTO is Stumped.
Okay. What happens when the FTO is stumped, Dan?
Everything melts down.
Shut her down.
Everything melts down, right?
Time to go
home. We're all hosed. No, the premise of the class is topics, law enforcement topics that are important today, 21st century type of policing, that are non-traditional. You know, in other words, if you were an FTO 5 years ago, 10 years ago, especially 25 years ago when I first became a police officer, these law enforcement topics, skills and abilities, knowledge, they weren't even on the board then. Things like ethical decision making. Right? It wasn't up to my FTO to help me make ethical decisions, but it is today, right, in law enforcement. Officer wellness and resiliency. It wasn't up to my FTO to make sure that I was well, emotionally, spiritually, financially, right, physically. In fact, I don't even know if that was even on the map in law enforcement 25, 30, 35 years ago. But these non-traditional training topics are very contemporary today. However, I'm a full believer. I really believe in the fact that they will be the norm going forward. So the class covers those type of topics and how to train them in the streets, in the field.
So what is it then that you're finding with FTOs? Are they, when these questions come up, because inevitably we have these new recruits, they're coming in. Obviously we try to tell them like, hey, ask questions. And when they come in and they have these questions, it's not like it used to be. And back in the day when you started, I'm sure that relationship between recruit and FTO was a lot different.
A lot more authoritative,
yeah.
Right? The relationship between the FTO and the new officer was a very strict teacher-student relationship. And that type of student-teacher relationship doesn't even exist in like school settings nowadays, in childhood school settings and in college and university school settings, right? That type of relationship doesn't even exist there anymore. It's a lot of studies have come out over the last couple decades that show us as instructors, regardless whether you're in law enforcement or kindergarten and everything else in between, that a very authoritative environment doesn't promote education and learning and stuff like that. So that has indeed changed a lot in law enforcement and in FTO over time, whereas the relationship between the FTO and the student, while there is a respect for the rank, right? While there's a respect for the rank, there's a respect for the FTO's resume, and there's a respect for the accountability that the FTO has got, right? They're very accountable for a lot of things. There is a lot of respect for that, and there always should be. However, the relationship is less authoritative and far more collaborative.
You know, I was talking with Jason Devlin earlier, and he brought up how it's kind of weird because as an FTO, the relationship that you build with your recruit is super important, because you could finish FTO one day and be sitting in that briefing room with them as a peer the next day,
right? And
they could be the ones responding to your call.
Sure.
And how that relationship is so important. And I think by those points that you were talking about, being able to address those from that relationship level and that emotional level with the recruit, I think it goes a long way into building those and developing those new officers.
You know, there's a public speaker by the name of Scott Williams, and I've seen him do a couple of presentations, and he's got a great question all of us as leaders should ask ourselves. And I'm an absolute believer that the field training officer, or the law enforcement instructor in general, is a leader and should consider themselves a leader. And if they don't, then they need to change that state of mind. But Scott Williams asked this question: If today your rank, your resume, your position of law enforcement instructor, FTO, was taken from you, would those people assigned to you as trainees still willingly and voluntarily follow you? If the answer is yes, you've been doing this right. You've been doing this correctly. If the answer is no, you've been doing this incorrectly. So you haven't been building followers, and you haven't been building relationships, and you haven't been building relationships with future, like Jason Devlin says, future coworkers, right? But more than just future peers, future followers, right? These men and women we're training in the field are our followers. If we consider ourselves leaders, they are our followers. Take away my FTO stripes, take away the chevrons on my sleeves, take away my sergeant stripes. Would the people that I supervise still choose to follow me? Well, I hope so. And if they do, that means I've done it right.
You know, that's one of the things that I've found as a constant, and it happened in the military and it happens in law enforcement. There's always those people that were involved in the development of you and as you go through your profession and your career that you remember, right? So you know, like that FTO that you had, because sometimes you cycle through multiple FTOs, sometimes you have one, but you have that one FTO, and you'll hear people talk about it 25 years later and talk about that person with respect. Like saying, and because of that impact that FTO made, because they were a phenomenal FTO. Every FTO, I think, should be striving to be that person that 25 years down the road, when that officer looks back on their career and says, hey, that's the person that got me started on the right path.
So a handful of times I've teared up on duty, right? A handful of times I've teared up on duty. A couple of them were for things that really pulled on my heartstring, right? A couple of them were tragic type of stories, right? But a couple of them are just those like personal things that kind of pulled on my heartstrings. And one of them was me sitting in one of my briefings one day. There I am, that patrol sergeant, right? And at that time, I'm also the FTO sergeant. And in that room is also an FTO, right, who I trained when I was an FTO, right? So here I am now, that young officer has grown up to be an FTO, and I am now that officer's FTO sergeant, right? That FTO is training someone else, is in the process of training someone else. I forgot a generation. Hold on a second. There's me, the FTO sergeant, right? There's another officer in there who was trained by me when they were brand new, right? Now that he is also an FTO. Then there is someone else in that room who I never trained as an FTO, but was trained by the man who I trained in that room as the FTO. That person is training someone new. There's 1, 2, 3 generations of, dare I say, Dan Greene trained people, police officers in this one room. And add me, I guess I'm the 4th generation of lineage in that lineage.
You're the great grandpa.
And I didn't even bring it up. Like I'm the great grandpa, right? I totally feel like it too sometimes, right? Totally feel like it. My back is out right now.
That's
I can barely sit. But it was one of those, pull on the warm and fuzzies. And I didn't even notice it at the time. It was the, what would that be? Great grandpa, grandpa,
dad, kid.
Dad, right? It would be dad, right? Dad brought it up. He's like, hey, take a look at this for a second. And so circling back around, long story, long-winded answer, circling back around to what you're saying is, yes, people do have stories about you. They have memories, they have stories. Some of them are funny, some of them are out of respect. Some of them are like, oh, what a crazy time that was. Gosh, that was a crazy call, man. That's what we hope they are, right? That's what we hope they are. And we hope they're not the other side of that coin, right? Like them, someone wanting to just poke toothpicks in their eyes because they trained with you.
Right.
So that was a cool moment. The 4 generations, me playing grandpa for the time.
That's awesome, man. So with the instructors here today, when you're teaching them, what are the things that you want them walking out of your class with?
Out of my class with? Something new, right? So I taught this morning, and I had FTOs in the room, and I had FTO managers in the room. So I guess I would start with the idea that while the class kind of focuses on what we call today non-traditional law enforcement training topics, I want them to leave knowing that they're more than likely going to be the norm. Like what we're talking about today in terms of stress management, officer wellness, ethical decision making, right? Well, we're talking about those things today as today's non-traditional topics, but they're going to stick. These things are going to stick, and we're going to have to train them for a couple generations going forward. So I want them to kind of take that to heart. And I also want them to see something new in it. I'm hoping that at least one person in the class said to themselves, yep, I've been challenged with that, or my FTOs, maybe I'm the manager, right? My FTOs have been challenged with this lately, and we've been looking for a way to fix it, and I just got it. Like, thank God I came to this class. So just like every other class that I teach, and I'm sure every other instructor here at ILEETA, just like every class that I teach, I don't want to waste anybody's time. You know, I hope to God I don't waste anybody's time. And B, you leave with something new that actually makes your job easier, makes you better, and it's a skill, it's a knowledge, it's an ability you didn't have before you came to the class.
Yeah, I love that. Last question for you, brother. Why do you always keep coming back to ILEETA?
I was hoping for another dozen questions. We can talk all day.
We could, but
it's dinner time.
It is dinner time. I'm hungry.
Why do I keep coming back to ILEETA? It's you. It's Brian Willis. It's Harvey. And then list all the other, list all the other people that you see coming here on a regular basis, right? It's the level of knowledge and abilities, these things I keep talking about, knowledge, abilities, and skills, right? It's all over the place here. All over the place here. You cannot spend a day here without leaving having learned something new, for sure. And so there's all these, the regulars here that when you come here, you're going to connect with one of the regulars and you're going to have a good time catching up. And you're going to learn something new from them, something they've been doing the last year or so since we last met. You're going to learn from them. And then there's B, to this question. Then there's all the newbies. There's the ILEETA virgins, if I dare say. I don't want to get all too dirty on microphone here. They're new. They're rookies to the game. And you get to do one of two things, or maybe you can do both of them. You can at least get to know someone new, right? Shake hands, get to know someone new, get to know a little bit about them. And also, if you are a returner, if you're a returner or a returnee, if you're a veteran, if you're an ILEETA veteran, you get the chance to do for them what someone has done for you. And that is like, take you under your wing, let me show you where the classrooms are, and let me look at your schedule, give you some advice on how to handle the week-long courses and blah, 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 right? You get to do a little bit of mentoring and make a new friend while you're at it, right?
I love that, dude. I love it. Well, I appreciate you taking the time, coming back and talking with us. And
My
looking
pleasure.
forward to seeing you in Louisville for the NAFTO conference coming up in June.
Yes, I wish, off the top of my head, I want to say 8, 9, 10. It might be 9, 10, 11.
No, it's 8,
but
9, 10.
It is June 2022 in Louisville, Kentucky.
Yeah.
I hear there's bourbon.
There will be plenty of bourbon. And anybody who's interested, and Dan, of course, we didn't really talk about this. We were talking about the training, but you're the executive director for NAFTO, the National Association of Field Training Officers.
Yes, sir.
That's one of the organizations here at ILET that we had to partner with. We've been working together. We're going to be doing a lot of amazing stuff this year. So if you're interested in NAFTO and learning more from Dan and all the phenomenal instructors with you guys, you can check out any of the links on the video, on the podcast. Come to the ILET website, go to the NAFTO website.
NAFTO.org.
Come to ILEETA, whatever it is, but you can get all the information there. So, brother, appreciate it. Let's go grab a bite to eat.
Let's do it.
All right.
Thank you.